You never want, if for some reason, there was a negative interaction with a raccoon, the head is essentially the part that's tested for rabies. So you never want to, if you feel that you're in danger, if you feel you came in contact with a rabid animal, you never want to damage the head of an animal. It's just one of those things that's essential for the rabies testing.
But you see in the yellow pages, people who advertise they're exterminators, or
pest control
experts. So how would they handle something? Would they just capture the animal and bring it over to you, or release it?
Well, that's not exactly my field. I don't know exactly what the nuisance people might do. If it's a pest animal that's just more or less creating a nuisance, burrowing underneath your deck, then that's something that they'd more than likely trap and then relocate the animal. If the animal is sick, I would say that that's probably something better handled by your local police department, by the county health department.
Right, and I think another important thing that people understand is it is illegal to trap and translocate, to move animals that are being a nuisance to you for a number of reasons: spread of disease from one area to another, parasites, rabies, whatever it may be, and also don't move your nuisance animals and make them somebody else's nuisance animal.
Right.
It's just not fair. It's not right. It's not right for that animal. You're moving it to an area. People often think that, well, they belong in the woods, so they capture an animal that doesn't necessarily live in the woods and bring it in the woods somewhere, doesn't have the requirements that it needs in that setting, and it dies anyway, or it dies trying to get back to where it came from. So
it's much better. See, one of the problems is that any mammal can get rabies, but raccoons are one of the species that can carry it, and they don't show the symptoms. So this whole idea of like catching them and then releasing them someplace else is particularly a bad thing to do with any rabies carrier like the raccoons. A better thing to think about is wild animals in general, including raccoons, they primarily are looking for food, water, and shelter. So it's better to just discourage them from living right in your backyard.
Right.
So just think about that. What is offering them? Food, and you already heard some examples like your cat food. Shelter, again, they want a wood pile might be a place. I did a study once in, of all places, Washington, D.C., where we tracked raccoons, and you know where they live? In chimneys. We were actually in a very fashionable area of Connecticut Avenue, and these wonderful houses, they don't use the fireplaces anymore. And the raccoons actually den in the chimneys of these houses. So anyway, figuring out where the raccoons are living nearby, where they're getting water and where they're getting food, and take that away from them, and they'll move on. They'll move on because your yard won't be attractive anymore. It's a much better idea to let them move away from you than you trying to force them to move away.
Right, and we have people that we license called nuisance wildlife control operators that you can call. You can call our general wildlife line in New Paltz, and we can give you the name of a nuisance wildlife control operator in your area, and they can come and they can meet with you, and they can figure out a way to exclude these animals, to get them out of your house and exclude them once they're out, and help you deal with a situation like that. They do charge for their services. It is a business, but things like this, it's a good idea to let professionals handle it rather than try to handle it yourself.
Absolutely.
So let's move on to skunks.
Everybody's favorite.
Hey, I like skunks.
I actually like skunks a lot. I think they're quite beautiful. And they're, again, a carnivore. They're a carnivore that has, again, very similar to raccoons, a very wide range of what it eats, including things like crickets and insects and other kinds of insects. Skunks are one of the few mammals that are bold enough and have thick enough fur that they'll attack honeybee colonies to get the honey. For example. They'll also go after small birds and their eggs, wide range of choices. They tend to live on the edge of forests and open land. And boy, what does that sound like? Suburbia. I mean, we've created like the perfect kind of skunk habitat with our yards that are surrounded by forests. And again, very much like the raccoons, they have a fondness for living under your deck, living in your garage, living in your attic if you got a hole. I mean, they'll go anywhere. They're really quite amazing at living right very close to people.
And skunks actually can burrow, and one of the calls that we get is, people find holes that are going under their foundation or under their shed, and quite often those are skunks. They love to burrow underneath people's houses and live there. And unfortunately, the bad thing about that is we all know that skunks can spray, and I've had this experience a couple of times where a skunk was living underneath my crawl space in my house, and during that winter breeding period around February, when a male comes in and a female is not receptive, she'll quite often spray. And it's one thing to get sprayed in the outdoors, but when a skunk sprays underneath your house, it can be it can be something. It'll make your eyes water, and it's actually considered a toxin by OSHA. So it's something you'd rather not have to deal with. And again, let the nuisance wildlife control operators deal with those animals and get them out of your household.
Only do males carry the scent glands, or just the female?
Males and females
Yeah.
carry the scent glands. If your dog gets sprayed, that's kind of a common call we get at T-Town. Suddenly maybe you let Rover outside and he comes back all covered. But it's actually kind of serious in that situation because number one, the spray might have gotten in his or her eyes, so you really need to wash their eyes out. Also, you do have to be careful when your dog gets sprayed because sometimes it's been in a fight with the skunk and it might have gotten bitten. And skunks, again, like raccoons and foxes, are a rabies carrier. As a matter of fact, CDC, when they test wild animals that have been turned in because of bites, 20% of those that were positive for rabies were skunks. So you have to be careful. If your dog comes back, I recommend very carefully take him out and spray him down with a hose. If you got eye wash, put that in his eyes if you got it in the eyes. And look carefully if there's any bite wounds. And if there is, you have to, again, carefully get that dog to a veterinarian because it might have been bitten by a skunk and possibly it could have been rabid. So your dog getting sprayed, it's kind of funny on one hand, but it's a serious issue that really needs care.
What about bathing the dog in tomato juice?
Tomato juice, I'm not going to touch that one. Does it work? I don't know.
Well, my wife happens to be a veterinarian, and she says, I asked her that question, she says it helps. If you go on the internet, you'll find that people have all kinds of recipes, and they include tomato juice, they include milk, but you also can go down to the local pet store, and they do sell products now that help break down the chemicals that are mercaptans, we call them, that are in the spray.
Actually, what is the spray?
It's a type of a sulfur compound called a mercaptan, and it's an evolutionary device that helps skunks to teach larger predators to leave it alone. Now, there are things that will catch a skunk and not mind the odor, and that includes around Yorktown, the great horned owl. Again, maybe the residents don't know, but we have different owls in the area, including great horned owls. And for some reason, great horned owls don't seem to mind the smell. I guess they don't smell it, and great horned owls will eat skunks. Bald eagles have been known to take skunks. In general, birds don't have as good olfactories as mammals, so I guess it's not surprising that owls and eagles would eat a skunk. The spray doesn't work.
James, so how do you approach a skunk?
Carefully, very carefully. I've had a few instances, and some of the guys that I work with, unfortunately, were right alongside with me for those instances. Skunks won't spray just haphazardly. There's a reason behind it. It's a defense mechanism. Like we were discussing, they may spray another male during mating season. A female may spray an unwanted male. But it's really, again, a case-by-case basis where you have to see exactly what's going on. Skunks will give you a little bit of a warning too. They'll chatter their teeth, they'll stomp their feet, they'll backpedal a little bit. It's not just a point and spray. Skunks are limited in how much they can spray. I believe the adults only get 2 or 3 shots at a time. So it's one of those things that you handle carefully, but you deal with it. And I think if you don't rush into something, it allows you to, understand what's going on. And if you pay attention to those warning signs, you'll know what's coming next. I mean, they can spray, up to 3 meters, so 10, 15 feet, roundabout, something like that. So, a lot of times people may want to throw a rock at it, or if you're close enough to throw the rock, you're probably close enough to get sprayed.
Where is the spray? Is it from the back of the skunk?
It comes from the anal glands. I believe there's 2 nipples on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Right at the base of the tail, really.
Right.
yeah.